It's like your cheeky Zoomer junior data analyst sitting in a channel with you. So it'll kind of like, it'll dunk on your data quality issues, and it'll like use emojis and make memes and stuff like that. But it'll also give you very useful actual business insights.
Welcome to the /podcast, where we lean into the future of IT by inviting fellow thought leaders, innovators, and problem solvers to slash through its complexity. I am your host, James Carman, and today we're talking to Pete Hunt. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Thanks for having me, James.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete is the CEO of Dagster Labs, the team behind Compass, an AI-powered tool that delivers fast, trustworthy answers to the why behind business metrics directly in Slack. Before founding Dagster Labs, Pete played a key role in open sourcing React at Facebook and later led major engineering teams at Instagram and Twitter, giving him a unique perspective on how data and decision-making evolve as organizations scale. Today, he's focused on helping business and RevOps teams move beyond gut feel decisions by combining governed data with AI to deliver insights in seconds. Pete brings deep experience in open source technology, data infrastructure, and AI-driven business intelligence, and is passionate about empowering teams to ask better questions and make smarter decisions where they already work. It's quite a bio.
Yeah.
You've been doing a lot of stuff.
You know, anytime I meet somebody new, I say that several paragraph spiel verbatim.
Yeah, it's like your elevator pitch. Like, hey, I'm Pete, and here's all my things.
Yeah, I walked into parent-teacher conferences the other day. They said, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm a teacher." And I said, "Oh, well, you know." And then I started talking about, RevOps. And
let me tell you something, teacher. All right. So the thing that jumps out at me, just because it's near and dear to my heart, is this React at Facebook. I know I was one of the early folks like using React before it was 1.0, when it was in Facebook, before, it was kind of became what it is today. I'm not a great React developer, but tell me about that experience. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. That's a big deal in the market, that React is.
It was a ton of fun. And so I had kind of joined Facebook as like, I'd come out of my master's program and was actually focused on distributed systems. And so I thought I was going to go to Facebook and work on like, back then, like big data technology was like the big thing. So Hive was very popular. I thought I was going to work on the next great like distributed search engine or database or caching system. And I ended up actually causing, like during the Facebook bootcamp process, you kind of do trial runs on a couple of different teams. And I did a trial run on the embeddable comments box widget. And I actually caused an incident where we would send like hundreds of notifications to people that had set up the comment box widget. And TechCrunch was one of the sites that had it set up. And so like in my fourth week of my career or something, I had gotten a TechCrunch write-up on my work. Now, it wasn't a positive write-up. It was an extremely negative write-up. But I was like, whoa, that was cool. Like I got something I did impacted the world, sort of. And so I ended up going to work on user-facing products because I thought that was cool. Didn't end up working on large-scale distributed systems until much later in my career. But working on product was super fun. I was around for the Facebook Google Plus wars, if you remember that. That was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
I was around for the Facebook transition from web to mobile, or desktop web to mobile web to native mobile, which was very exciting. And, along the way, we acquired Instagram, and kind of part of that process was moving Instagram the other direction that Facebook was moving, right? Instagram started as mobile app, but it was leaving a lot of web users out. And so we kind of were building out a web app for Instagram. And we had this kind of experimental technology internally that one guy was hacking on. And it was in use on like one tiny little part of the Facebook site. And we just decided to like fairly recklessly build the whole Instagram web experience on top of this very experimental technology. I was a couple years of my career at that point. So it's like kind of the peak level of danger in terms of like your judgment. You know what I mean? It's like you can get a lot of stuff done, but you don't really take technical risks that seriously, I think. Anyway, so it ended up being, it wasn't perfect. There was a lot of work to do on the core framework, right? Like a lot of APIs were changing, a lot of stuff didn't work right, a lot of stuff, there weren't best practices around things like data fetching and routing and stuff like that. And so
Hmm.
we built like the first client side router for React. We built the first like data fetching system for React. We built like the first JavaScript GraphQL client and stuff like that, or maybe the second one. But like, anyway, we did this like internal open source of React, which was called something different back then, into Instagram. And so I was just like a guy that was trying to build a website basically, and picked an experimental technology and like started fixing stuff. And I was like, man, this technology is awesome. This is way better than anything that I have ever used. And I had used, jQuery was very dominant back then, but
Hmm.
Prototype JS was still around, a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
other things like that. And but React was like this weird alien technology that I thought was really neat. And so I got really excited about it, and ended up joining this ragtag group of people at the company that really pushed to open source it. And that was it was just like a lot of fun. It ended up being very impactful, and it really helped me kind of like get started in my career, which was great.
Now I gotta know, somebody who was there at the time. So when I learned React, at the time when I learned it, it was like, oh, you got to React Redux, React Redux. Everybody was like Redux, Redux, Redux. Was it intentional to not build kind of that state management in, or was it just kind of a oversight, or what was the deal with that? Why did Redux have to come to be? Seems like such a glaring omission.
Well, yeah, I would say there's a couple of things that you could put in that category too, right? Not just global state management, but data fetching, which now you've got React Suspense, which is pretty good, um, but that wasn't part of the original React
Okay.
release. And component, like I always thought that we should have had some sort of blessed component library, like some sort of badge you could put on like an npm package. It's like the React team like endorses this.
Mm.
Because there was a period of time, I think if you remember back then, where there were like a million different type of head components, and like none of them, like all of them had something broken, but they were all broken in different ways.
So you had to like Frankenstein them all together, maybe.
Yeah. So, I think that there were a couple of misses like that. But to answer your question, one of the things that made React really successful and makes some other open source projects really successful as well is like they're extracted out of like real use cases, right? And
Hmm.
so it's like React was not this like clean sheet design, it didn't it rather it wasn't built for greenfield applications. It was actually built for like very, very brownfield applications, like
Cool.
Facebook ads creation flow, Facebook newsfeed, Instagram's use case was greenfield, which is why
Hmm.
we ran into like routing and data fetching first, because we didn't have to integrate with the existing Facebook infrastructure that did all that stuff. So what you ended up actually getting out of this kind of like starting with brownfield and then having some greenfield mixed in there was like it interoped really well with existing stuff. Like on day one, like we had this demo. One of the first demos that I built was you would because actually Instagram kind of started out as a jQuery and Mustache JS app,
Hmm.
and you could actually embed jQuery UI inside of React, and you can embed React inside of jQuery. And when you can like embed one thing inside of the other thing like recursively, interop becomes very easy, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Sure.
so so that was, when so much of your focus is on interop with existing legacy code, like you don't come up with a lot of these like net new design patterns. And Redux was kind of like a much better version of the the Facebook chat state management system,
Hmm.
which
Okay.
React had to integrate with, which was different from the Facebook ads management state management system, which was different from the newsfeed one. So yeah. And by the way, the Instagram state management system was Backbone JS, and like that was
Really?
like actually one of the first single page apps with React was like a Backbone JS like model layer and a React kind of view layer.
Pretty cool. All right, well. Thank you for open sourcing it. We all love React. It's awesome. I build it with that React every week. I'm sure. That's cool. What about Twitter? You mentioned in your bio Twitter. What'd you get into over there?
Yeah, so I ended up leaving Facebook in, at the end of 2014, early 2015. I had put in a couple of years there. It was really fun, very engaging. But there were a number of factors I think that led to me leaving. I'm not sure it was necessarily like made sense at the time, but what I kind of saw was React was this like once in a I don't know if it's like once in a lifetime thing, but it was like a very big deal. But I would go to conferences a lot, and I would see people that were that had done that in the previous generation for some sort of front end thing.
Hmm.
'Cause it was mostly JavaScript and front end conferences I was going to, and it was like the same. Like they were clearly doing the same talk. It's same conference circuit like for years and like kind
Yeah.
of stagnating.
Hmm.
And I was like, man, like I don't know, I was a little like restless. I wanted to kind of like do the startup thing. So I ended up starting a company in the trust and safety space because Instagram had this problem too, where there were like lots of fake accounts. There
Yeah.
was like, any sort of bad stuff on the internet. You can imagine Instagram, which was at the time a very large, like public network of photo sharing, like has
Hmm.
lots of problems, right?
Hmm.
And so we had to address some of that stuff at Instagram. I had started a company that kind of tried to do that as a service for everyone else. Like this is like the world's most boring startup playbook, right? Which is like Google or Facebook builds a internal tool that's good, and like some startup spins out that tries to build that as a company.
Hmm.
And we did that for like 3.5 years and got pretty far and recruited a bunch of household names as customers that you would have heard of. And then eventually we sold that to Twitter, which was our second largest customer at the time. And that's how I kind of came over to Twitter. And so I was mostly working on uh, trust and safety related stuff. And eventually that kind of morphed into like managing the internal tools and operations teams too. So that was really, that was a big learning experience over there. I learned a lot about a ton of different things.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I know you mentioned like when you were talking about earlier on after you broke the internet and got in trouble your very like, first few weeks at Facebook, and then you said something along the line like you studied like big data type stuff in college. When was the transition, and where did you finally get to work on that kind of stuff?
Oh, at this startup on trust and safety,
That
right?
was where. Okay, cool.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we we got to scale pretty quickly. So there were a couple of instances. We had like Reddit and Quora and GoFundMe and we had Discord and we had Twitter and we had a startup called Musically, which turned into TikTok.
No way.
And so we had real scale. Like we had like millions of daily active users, or we were like protecting millions of daily active users, processing that data. And the mission of the company was like find the bad stuff as fast as you can and tell the network about it, and then the network, the Twitter or whoever, they could take that signal, they could do whatever they want with it. Like they've got their own policies about how many accounts you can make and all that stuff and what your behavior is. But like our job is just kind of like find anomalies and help them enforce policy. And so that's a really serious stream processing problem.
Yeah.
um, it's large. It was definitely, it's tens of thousands of events per second, which I know there are some companies that are bigger than that, but for a startup of 20 people, that's pretty big.
20 people in your process and that. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And what's interesting about it is like you would think that this is like a classical machine learning problem. And oftentimes if you go to like a machine learning 101 or 201 in college back then, they'd say spam detection is like a
Uh-huh.
classic ML problem. It's like get the labeled spam emails, get the labeled good emails, train a logistic regression classifier on the trigrams or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And, it's simple as that. It's done. In the real world, is not like that at all because you don't have labels.
Right.
Or by the time you get the labels, like they're a week old and they're too old because the attacker like knows that they're trying to evade detection. Um, so you have to use all sorts of unsupervised techniques, which a lot of times means like, streaming approximate statistical techniques. So like we were doing stuff like building custom databases on top of like RocksDB and C++ to do things like a sliding window hyperlog log, which
Hmm.
at the time you couldn't really get off the shelf. I think you probably can get it now from a bunch of databases, but back then, that was like something that we had to code up ourselves, and so that was like some real serious distributed system stuff. And I was able to actually like crack open the textbook and read some papers and actually dig in on some interesting technical problems.
Now, I'm just curious. At the time when you came out, were you like in college? Were you using the tools like Hive and Hadoop and stuff like that? Was that part of the curriculum, or was this just something like, or was it more foundational? I'm just curious about the education side of that.
Well, you can see these grays in my beard.
Okay. Okay.
I graduated. I got my bachelor's in 2010 and my master's in 2011. So I had one class which was called like cloud computing.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, hey guys, there's this like really cool new thing that came out recently called AWS. I remember we used S3, EC2, and they spent the most time on SQS for some reason. I don't know why, but that was what they focused on. And they gave everybody like a $300 AWS account. And I remember that because I left a file in S3 and like years later it like burned through that and like started charging my credit card like
Where's this even coming from?
right. But yeah, that was I think the extent of the modern, infrastructure education we got. Like they didn't really teach you how to use source control too much.
Yeah.
A lot of it was, like written problem sets.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some project work, but they were submitted as like Python scripts or C++. My operating systems class was in C, and I think we just submitted that as a zip file of source code.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Of course, my first class was in like Pascal, so on a VAX computer. So I
You
got a
got
few
me
of those
beat.
grays too. Yeah.
I had to do some standard ML for compilers class.
Yeah. So now for your data processing stuff, were you in the kind of the Hadoop era, or were you more in the like Apache Spark era? Where did that sort of land for you?
I was in the transition. So
Okay.
when I joined Facebook, it was all Hive.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we were doing the startup, it was mostly Kafka based, and that was actually back when Apache Samza was like potentially going to be the next big thing. And so we kind of built a lot of stuff on that. We had built some stuff on what was it called? Storm. We had built some stuff on as well. So we were like a little less focused on stuff like Spark, and we were more focused on like kind of how do we do stream processing. And I think that like Apache Beam kind of ended up being the thing that we settled on at the end. But yeah, it was interesting. There's a lot of evolution at the time.
It was, so I was serving as like the assistant secretary. I feel like I sound like George Costanza. I'm the assistant to the traveling secretary at Apache at the time when like all of that big data stuff was blowing up, Hadoop and all that. Like, and so I had to process all of the ICLAs, the contributor licensor agreements, and like it was just constant. And there were so many new projects spinning up. It was wild at Apache when all of that craziness was going on. All those names, and man, it just exploded like crazy from that in the big data era. That was pretty cool.
And that was back when like O'Reilly conferences were big too, and so there was like tons of them. I remember OSCON was like crazy. It was fun and exciting, but like a little overwhelming too. When you're like, hey, we just got to pick a technology and roll with it. It's like it's a little stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so then so you did Twitter, and then now what about Dagster? How did Dagster come to be? Where did that come from?
Well, a good friend of mine started the company in 2018, and I had recently sold the company to Twitter, and I was working on a bunch of stuff related to trust and safety and internal tools there. And I was kind of getting to the end of my vesting and popping my head up. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of look at their career in 4-year increments. Like a lot of times vesting, at tech companies is 4 years. And so
Hmm.
you hit the 3.5-year mark, you start to kind of wonder what's out there. And, he was hiring a head of engineering, and I was kind of, like, listen, working at Twitter in trust and safety from 2018 to 2022 was like not like easy. Um, and I was gone. Like I left to join Dagster um, before all the Elon stuff had happened, but it was like, a pandemic, like shutdown. Like we had to like, uh, we had to do this whole fire drill about like how to adapt to remote work and all that stuff. It was hard. And so I was ready for change, and he was trying to hire a head of engineering. I was helping him hire for that. And then I was like, you know what, I'll just like do this job. And then I came over, and by the end of the year, he made me CEO. So that was a little unexpected, but it was like kind of picking up where I had left off. I was CEO of the last startup as well, and so this was a great opportunity for me to kind of like finish the unfinished business.
Nice. And so Dagster, explain to us what even is that, as the kids would say.
Yeah, yeah. So Dagster is an open source framework for building data pipelines. The fancy term is data orchestrator.
Hmm.
So the idea here is that you've got a bunch of different technologies that have to work together in order to deliver data to like some sort of end user. So how many sprockets do we have in the warehouse? How many users bought our product, and why did they buy the product? Or like, how do these drug trials go, and what does that tell us about the, different experiments that we ran? All those are what we call data assets, and they're files in a data lake like S3, or they're tables in a data warehouse or database like Postgres or Snowflake. And there's a complex set of processes, not unlike like a software build process, like
Hmm.
Makefile, that produces that data. You could start with a cron job or a Makefile or a shell script. But once you have to interop with like 20 different technologies across a bunch of different environments, and the runtimes go from minutes to days or hours, and the failure modes are expensive and complex, you need a bunch of observability, you need a bunch of retries, you need a framework to help you model it. And that's really where the data orchestration category comes in. And Dagster, we like to think, is the highest level and best abstraction and best tooling, to orchestrate your data pipelines. So a lot of times, um, really like organizations either bring in Dagster for their greenfield projects, or when they're kind of like simple projects start to get more complex, they use Dagster to manage that complexity.
So the DAG part comes from directed acyclic graph, right? And is that kind of how you model like the process of going out and fetching and getting all of this data, and it's a graph of sorts, and then that's where the resumability is kind of modeled as that graph. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. You basically define a directed acyclic graph of data assets that depend on each other. You can do it through Python, you can do it through YAML, you can do it with one of our integrations that like pulls in the lineage from something else. And then by kind of adding a constraint of like a DAG that is for the most part known up front at like build time, you can produce. It's much easier to observe, what's going on in your platform, and be able to like maintain that.
I know when we talked the other day during the prep call, you mentioned Airflow is kind of it's often seen as being kind of in the same bucket as Dagster. How does Dagster differ from Airflow? Like where to kind of, if somebody says, okay, Airflow is just not working for me anymore, I'm probably need to reach for Dagster. What does that look like for a user?
Well, I think I'd start with an analogy.
Okay.
I think that Airflow in many ways is the jQuery, and Dagster is the React, and of this category. And so what I mean by that is like jQuery was awesome. Like you remember back in the jQuery days, it was like it was a
Hmm.
revolution. It solved a bunch of problems for people.
Absolutely.
Um, Papered over a bunch of the browser differences. It was a joy to use. I think Airflow, like it's got its quirks. I don't know if people would call it necessarily like a joy to use, but it was like basically a first mover in this open source orchestration category solved a lot of problems for a lot of people. But just like with jQuery, when the browser standards got better and the implementations got better and the value of papering over those like kind of went down. Similarly, like in infrastructure, the infrastructure landscape has changed a lot since Airflow was architected. There's there's this thing called public cloud, these things called containers.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is gonna, share one Python environment. Not everybody's gonna write Python. Not everybody's gonna write one language. And there's a lot more SaaS services, right? And so the landscape, I think, changed. That created an opportunity to bring in a better unifying abstraction that's a little higher level. And that's what React did in the browser. And similarly, that's kind of what Dagster is doing, in the category of data orchestration.
Nice. It was interesting the other day. So it's funny how these things happen. I was doing some research on agentic workflows, and one of the things that comes up is durable. What is it
Mhm.
called? Like durables.
Durable execution
Durable.
engines.
Thank you. Durable execution. And I was going back and forth with ChatGPT, learning more about durable execution. And I was like, okay, so what are some of the frameworks? And Dagster came up. I'm like, huh. I didn't know that. So that would be interesting. I wanted to ask you about that. How is it seen as a durable execution framework?
Well, under our approach is to kind of have two layers of abstraction that the developer sees and uses. The higher level is a directed acyclic graph of data assets. So think of this as a declarative layer. You describe the outputs that you want, and the system figures out how to schedule the compute and is all oriented towards the outputs, right? Kind of like React, right? This is what I mean
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about the React versus jQuery comparison. It's very declarative, not imperative.
Gotcha.
Underlying that layer is an imperative layer, which is it's another DAG, but it's a DAG of imperative tasks. So rather than outputs, it's about the actions and verbs that need to happen. So like that high level is nouns, the lower level is verbs. And
Okay.
when you take a look at Apache Airflow, it's really that lower layer without that higher layer. Now they've
Gotcha.
kind of built, a lightweight higher layer on top, but it's kind of bolted on. And when you fundamentally design the system with that higher layer in mind, it looks a lot different. But that's really kind of how we've structured Dagster for these data pipelines. And that bottom layer, that DAG of verbs, that's a durable execution engine, right? And so we really focus our use cases primarily on the data pipelines that feed the models, as opposed to the like real time durable execution, live in the agent loop, the way that something like a temporal would, like a place where a temporal would play, just because that's really our bread and butter, and that asset layer, that declarative layer on top, is really designed for data pipelines. And it's we really believe in using the best tool for the job at each step. So you really position Dagster as the pipes that carry the data into the models, and there's a durable execution layer underneath that. If you want to use that durable execution layer to power your agents, that's great, but we're not necessarily optimized for that, in the agent loop itself.
Right. So they're basically modeling the workflow of the things that need to get done and the state of where we are in that execution using Dagster's underlying kind of more verb layer. Okay, cool. All
Yeah.
right, I can see that. All right, it's cool. All right, well that's pretty impressive. I was not aware of Dagster, and it's funny how now it's coming up all the time when somebody's listening. Apparently, I guess. Yeah. You might know about that. Maybe if we could talk off air about that. Anyway, Compass. That's your latest thing that's going on. Compass. Tell us a little bit about Compass. What even is that?
Yeah. So Compass is really cool, and I think it's a pretty cool story for how it came about. So what Compass is it's a way to access your data. So you have data sitting in a data warehouse, and you want to be able to ask questions of that data. And we've built a really clean, ergonomic, and fun experience for accessing that data in a multiplayer way within Slack and soon Microsoft Teams. And so I think that there's a couple of things to dig into there. Like the first is like, why did we even do this, and how did this come about? And we basically built this tool to run our own business.
Hmm.
And we had
Nice.
tried building it a couple of times. AI has been hyped for a couple of years at this point. But what we realized was when Sonnet 3.7 came out, which I believe was February of this year, this was the first time that this stuff actually worked good enough to create value for our business.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so we started, like, it was actually like really funny. We started by exporting our Salesforce data as CSVs, dropping it into a Git repo, and then pointing Cursor at the DuckDB CLI, and then asking Cursor questions about our sales pipeline, which is like a total like MacGyvered BI tool. You know what I mean? And I was like on a flight, and this was working. I was like, well, this is sweet. And then rigged together this tiny little Python script, command line script that would take in some JSON data and spit out a matplotlib visualization, which is really lightweight, data visualization. And I had Cursor call that too, and would like write PNG files into the repo, and then you could like look at them. And I actually used it to make some business decisions. Like we were trying to figure out what is the difference between our corporate sales segment and our enterprise sales segment, right? Like how should we deploy reps? What should we be talking about? How should we price the product? All these types of things, that's real revenue operations, RevOps work, right? And we were doing it with this like silly little thing that we had put together with Cursor. And I was sitting down with our RevOps data analyst, and he was like, "Hey, like this should be a Slack bot." And that's props to Anil for coming up with that. And we ended up packaging up that experience in Slack bot. I used it all the time. I started giving it to some of the people I work most closely with. They started using it all the time. We rolled it out to the whole company. We had sales reps, we had marketing people, we had support people, engineers, designers, all asking questions of the data. It like completely transformed our business. We gave it to a couple of our investors to play around with, took over their business, gave it to a couple of our favorite design partners for new features. They became weekly or daily active users of it. And we were like, okay, this thing is clearly good. We should turn this into a product. And so that's really the like how it came together. It's like, as much as I would like to say that originally it came from some grand strategy, there was a strategic component to that for sure. But like at the end of the day, it's like, even in the age of AI, like, it's like, it's still the same stuff. It's still like build something that solves a problem for you. And if it's something other people want, that might make a great product.
Yeah. Wow. So it's a Slack bot. So you interact with it. Do you have like kind of those / commands, or is it kind of like, hey, Compass, and just type in natural language? What, how do you even use this thing?
It's like your cheeky Zoomer junior data analyst sitting in a channel with you.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it'll kind of like, it'll dunk on your data quality issues, and it'll like use emojis and make memes and stuff like that. But it'll also give you very useful actual business insights, right? So it really is like you mentioned, you say at Compass, like, how many widgets did we sell today? And it'll give you like a, plot week over week, how you're doing. And then you'd be like, Compass, why did it drop last week? And then it'll go through the website traffic and go through the sales call transcripts and the support tickets and go try to figure this out. And it's a very magical experience. And I think the magic comes from two places. The first is that AI, when especially when combined with like a SQL data warehouse, like it's like a totally killer app. Like everybody thinks that like AI coding is the killer app, and maybe it is, but I think that AI plus SQL is like even better.
Mm-hmm.
The second though is, I think the biggest problem in data tooling today is not accuracy, is not product quality, is not cost optimization. It's that nobody in the organization actually uses the tools, right?
Okay.
And so where other companies and products spend 80% of their time thinking about complex multi-agent orchestration and complex eval frameworks and, oh my God, how do we optimize token usage here and blah, 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 blah. semantic layers and all that stuff. We spend about 20% of our time thinking about that and 80% of our time thinking about how do we make this a product that normal people will actually use. And so it
Imagine
has to
that.
be fun, has to be easy, has to be right there where you're already working. And also it has to be collaborative too, right? Because like if you're the, like nobody on the data team wants to give the CEO unfettered access to the data warehouse because they're going to go down these rabbit holes and start like firing people based on incorrect data, like
Uh-huh.
that's not good. So one of the constraints that we have is that it's fundamentally multiplayer. We don't actually let it work in a single player mode. So you can't DM it. It has to be in a channel with other people.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So there's this kind of magic social experience that works together with the AI and SQL magic.
Very cool. All right. So, this idea of this is kind of a big thing in AI right now. This natural language query thing where you say just words and the AI figures out, okay, I know what they're looking for. I need to figure out the SQL queries or whatever queries they are to go gather the data and bring intelligence out of the data to answer this question. How do you guys go about that if you can, answer that?
Yeah. So it's I think that you start by aggregating as much signal as you can. So make it really easy to get data into the tool. If there's existing data documentation, we pull that in. If there's stuff that we can infer about the data based on, what's connected, we pull that in. We do some web scraping and stuff like that to understand the business. And we very rapidly start to assemble this like semantic understanding of data.
Nice.
For whatever reason, another important part of this is like you've heard me talk about how we really want to drive adoption of
Mhm.
like we spend most of our time thinking about how do we drive adoption of this within the organization and less about like the shiny technical interesting stuff, right? Um, we really take this almost like social networking mindset to this category. So if you think about TikTok or Instagram Reels or one of these things that melts your brain and you shouldn't give the kids, but you know, uh, what do they do? Do you go into TikTok and type in your preferences? Hey, like, I enjoy like, you know, videos like this. No, it like rapidly infers it based on usage, right? And actually like nobody's ever going to document their preferences. And like we believe that like organizations might document some of their really critical key metrics definitions, but like in different parts, like complex organizations are complex. There are different business definitions, different parts of the business. They drift and they change over time. And it's like a fool's errand to try to maintain that. And so we actually spend a lot of time trying to learn from user interaction. So like as you interact with a bot, for example, we say, oh, like it looks like the user got confused or it looks like the user is trying to like correct this thing. Let's learn that and put it through like a governance workflow such that like it'll like kind of crowdsource knowledge about the business from usage, but it
Uh-huh.
will also keep the data team in control so that it doesn't learn the wrong thing. So we do this cool thing where the bot's memory is not sitting in some database that you don't have access to. It actually sits in a Git repo that you control, and all changes to that business context come in through pull requests, right? So
Whoa.
you can run CI on it, you can run analytics on it, you can run whatever governance code owners stuff you want to put in there, like you can do. And that has been something that our customers have given us rave reviews about. We're the only people doing it. I don't know
Cool.
why. It's a great idea.
It's really
It's not
cool. Yeah.
really that like I don't think it's that clever, but I guess it is because nobody else is doing it.
It's just thinking outside the box, man. That's really cool. Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a big reason I think why we're able to really rapidly get to pretty good query quality without a really expensive onboarding process.
And this is just a curious question. When you were saying like people aren't going to tell you their preferences, could it possibly be even that you saw this through Instagram or whatever, but like maybe they don't even know their preference. They can't articulate them anyway. Even if they wanted to, they may not even know they have a preference for, oh, I really love cat videos. Like I didn't know that I love cat videos, but until you showed me a couple and I was like, man, that's a hoot. Like, is that a concept even with businesses?
I think so. Cause like I give this spiel to like the company like once every 6 to 12 months because I don't want the company to be a place where like people are like quiet about stuff. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
what I like to tell people is that, you know, like the executives, and if you're higher up in the org chart, you probably have a broader view and a view into some things that people lower in the org chart don't have.
Hmm.
But it's a much lower resolution view than what people lower in the org chart have. And what we actually need to do is create a map of the landscape that is high resolution across the whole breadth of it, right? And so, like, I've got kind of the high level sketch of the map, and then individuals fill in the details of the map. So, like, you know, it is not like I'm the expert in like how do we do these broad scale trade offs and where do we spend, our high level focus.
Hmm.
But when it comes to the higher resolution stuff, like do we use Kafka or Nats or something? That's not. I'm not qualified to make that decision. Like the engineers that actually like have to be on call for the damn thing, have to do that, right? And so similarly in business, the data teams they are the expert in the high level KPIs of the business and the stack that produces that data. But there are going to be different parts of the business that know business definitions better than the centralized data team. And like a good example is, I didn't think that we would have individual sales reps, as big users of this product, but they are our number one users internally.
Wow.
And when you think about data analysis, you don't think of an individual sales rep as doing data analysis. You think of them as taking meetings, getting to know the customer, trying to figure out how to align your product with what they need, and find a deal that works for everybody, right? Um, they're using this to understand their own book of business. They're using it to understand places in the funnel where they are like, common query is, give me 10 accounts that have high engagement on our website that aren't being worked that match, the recent wins that I've had. Right. And, they start to use terminology that is not baked into the semantic layer of the business, but we still need to learn it. Right. So that's why this like kind of feedback loop and this learning is really important.
Cool. So the next thing I wanted to ask about was like the Slack aspect. I would presume that that's part of the effort to get people to actually use it. Whereas if you were to I'm in Slack every day, all day. That's the world where a lot of companies live, a lot of their employees live, interacting with their coworkers, especially remotely. Um, if I was to have to go out of that to go to another dashboard and interact with it, it's less likely to happen. Have you seen anything like some interesting like side effects and other benefits that maybe you had not foreseen when you thought about let's do this as a Slack app?
I don't think we really thought too hard about the implications of it. It was kind of like, oh yeah, like again, it was like a lunchtime conversation. Oh yeah, we should take this stupid cursor thing and like put it into Slack. Okay. And then we built like the basic version of that. When like we just didn't get around to building the DM feature. And then we realized that this social feature, because it started as a single player cursor experience, and we're like, okay, let's just make it a single player experience in Slack.
Uh,
And then it became this organic multiplayer experience. And I don't think we really appreciated, or at least I didn't appreciate the social dynamics up front. And I'll give you a good example. One of our customers' most beloved features of the product is that when Compass doesn't know the answer to something, it opens a ticket for them and it writes the ticket. It links to where the ticket was open, and it's a better ticket than their stakeholders normally would have written. And because it links to where in the analysis they were actually like running into the roadblock, it
mhm.
helps the team decide whether they want to like fulfill the request, completely ignore it, or help them out in a different way.
Wow, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And so like I didn't kind of appreciate the social aspect and this kind of like improving collaboration piece. That was not intentional, but something that we discovered along the way.
All right, so I kind of jump back a little bit on the Slack thing, but like you're mentioning kind of this RevOps approach and Compass, as you're saying, your number one users are kind of revenue operations folks. So why is that? What do you think that how did that phenomenon come to be?
Well, I think every business has some kind of funnel somewhere,
Hmm.
right? And so, and optimizing that funnel is like a big part of any business. And the thing about that is that it's not perfectly scientific, right? Like you are often testing hypotheses and getting approximate answers and then trying an experiment and learning from that feedback. And I think that is really well suited to this type of application, which is, it gets you fast, approximate, directionally correct answers that you can rapidly iterate on.
Hmm.
And so, like, we really optimize for that. I think kind of BI tools and BI dashboards like are not replaced by AI, in my opinion. I think the metrics you read out to the board are like should be signed off by a human, should be in a very stable, well curated set of dashboards. Um, but for this particular case, there's just lots of experimentation and iteration is used by a wide variety of like less technical people. So that's why I think it's found a really good fit there. Places where it doesn't have a great fit, we talked to a couple hedge funds, for example,
Hmm.
and they're
Yeah,
like, listen, like we're all like big brain experts on data analysis, and we have teams of people that serve our partners, and they want like, perfect, like perfect analysis. They want all the follow-ups proactively done for them. Like it's just not something that they really need. And so I think if you're looking to do like science, right? I don't think this product is particularly, the right fit for everything. But for a lot of this stuff around revenue and sales and customer success and also querying unstructured data like support tickets
sure.
and sales call transcripts, it's great.
Yeah, so things that are a little more maybe squishy in nature, as you said, like sales it's not an exact science, right? So uh, if you're directionally correct, that's good enough, and you can kind of almost like gradient ascent your way to the right answer, over time with trial
Yeah.
and error and continually getting more directionally correct. Okay, yeah,
As long as you can iterate on it and as long as it's transparent about what it's doing, fast and directionally correct is the way to go.
nice. All right. Wow. This is has been really cool. Talking about all you've done some really cool stuff as your bio says. But we are transitioning this part of the show. We are now transitioning into our ship it or skip it segment.
Ship or skip, everybody we gotta tell us if you ship or skip.
And this is kind of our take on hot or not, just using our industry's terminology of ship it or skip it. We'll give you a topic and you kind of say, yeah, that's a good idea or not, or, ship it or skip it. So the first one I had to ask because you're involved with React, you're an OG, right? So what do you think about this whole React server components thing?
Well, there was that big vulnerability this week.
Yeah, it seems like that was a problem.
It's not great. My friends will kill me, but I'm a little more of a skip it on this one. I tend to find that most of the stuff that I work on is majority client rendered anyway.
Mhm.
And I had spent too much time in the Python world and to a lesser extent the Java RMI world to kind of like magic transparent RPC does come with some, it makes these types of vulnerabilities a lot easier to happen. So
Yeah,
I'm unfortunately a skip it on that one.
gotcha. How did we get here? I mean, we went from like single page apps and client side rendering. It was like, oh, we can use the client's machines to render everything and not have all this cycles we have to pay for on the server, because we were doing server side rendering forever, right? It was kind of the thing. How did we come like circle back? How did that happen?
Yeah, pendulum swings every couple of years, I think. But I can tell you that's why we did client rendering on Instagram initially, was wanted to save some cycles on the server.
Sure.
And then, browsers started downloading megabytes of JavaScript before anything could run. It was just slow and sucked for especially low quality mobile networks. So we moved back to the server. And I think, listen, like it's definitely the best developer experience to deliver a server rendered app. I think it just comes with some complexity that is still being worked out right now.
Yeah, I think we almost have like this all or nothing approach a lot of times, and some of the stuff that the problems you try to solve, because like if you put like entitlement type decision making in the client side code, of course people can crack open the JavaScript and say, hey, let's turn off that if statement. Oh, I'll be darned, I got this new feature and I'm allowed to use it and I didn't pay for it. Obviously that's a problem. You need to put that server side, but it doesn't have to be the entire thing, right? Like you can kind of piece it together, work collectively on those things. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I like learned in my older age was I used to think that the RPC boundary being explicit was like a bug. It was like
Mm-hmm.
inelegant, right?
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't have to care where the computer runs. Now I definitely view it as a feature, like having a very clear performance, like permissions checking boundary is super important.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I'm kind of a skip it on the React server components myself. I think everything I do client side rendered and everything works fine. The next one is, this one's kind of cool. I'm noticing kind of there's a bit of a trend when it comes to user experience right now with, a lot of people are using these chat GBTs and all of that. And it almost seems like people are like, hey, we can kind of just get away with input box and a go button, and you type in some stuff and you say, here's what I want to do, and zippity doodah, and go off and do it. Like chat is now the new user experience for everything. What do you think about that trend?
Definitely ship it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're to a certain extent, we're betting on that with Compass, right? That you can deliver, like, there's not a web app for Compass really after onboarding. There's an admin web app and there's like an onboarding web app. But for your average user interacting with this product, it's purely in Slack. It's like images and text. And I I don't think that it's gonna replace everything,
Mm-hmm.
but it's certainly, I think, gonna be a paradigm that a lot of people expect for a lot of apps as the main way that they interact.
Yeah, it's, again, this is the pendulum swinging thing, right? Remember we had all those all those dumb terminal apps back in the day, and everything connected to these big computers back in the where the data center. And now, we did all these really fancy, beautiful UIs and gorgeous stuff with React and whatnot. And now we're kind of going back to this like just text oriented user interface. I mean, it's different. I mean, it's not the exact same thing, but
Well,
it's just
I
fascinating.
think it's gonna I think the input. So first of all, I think you're gonna see the rise of like no input user interfaces where just like the proactive pushing of notifications and stuff like that to the human will be like perfect, right? Or like really, really good. And then, so like you didn't even know you wanted to run this query, but like it ran, and here's the information that you didn't even know you wanted, right?
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
that's going to happen. I think that natural language is like the entry point to a lot of applications, whether it's through voice or through written text, will be really interesting. And I think the response uh, from that input will basically adapt based on what what the right way to get the information into the person is, right? Like sometimes it's, people, I think, you know, like sometimes reading text is the right way to do it when you need real precision.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes listening is what you want when you're kind of doing a couple of things at once. And for something like Google Maps, right? Like you're going to want a real visual representation, non-text visual representation, and rich UI widgets. So I do think this like generative UI thing is just going to become like user interfaces eventually.
One thing I know I like to interact with my chat GPT, like when I'm in the car and I'm driving, I just press that little like button where I can talk to it, and she comes out, oh, hey, how can I help you today? And of course she, gives me compliments and all of that on all my brilliant ideas. But like, I was thinking like, are we going to get to the point? And I don't even know if it's just a fidelity thing. Like, can we just not get there? Is it a bandwidth thing? Like, why aren't they doing that with video? Like, why don't I have like a video of an assistant there? Is that just too much information to render and generate on the fly now? Voice feels like it's kind of heavy, but it's obviously not as heavy as video. Are we going to get to the point where I just have this rendered cartoony assistant that says, hey, I'll talk to you about your thing?
We have been kicking around the idea of a Zoom client for Compass.
Okay.
But I think that it wouldn't be like a talking head thing. It'd be more like rendering the data visualizations and stuff like that in the video stream. But
Okay.
I think I am not an expert in the state of the art video models and how practical that is. I suspect that somebody could rig up Unreal Engine or Unity with
Mm-hmm.
an AI model. So it's not like doing like a VO3 style model. It's more like kind of manipulating a couple of floats in a game engine to deliver some of this stuff. I think that could be like a very interesting thing.
It would be like Max Headroom. I don't. You may not. You may not have
Oh,
enough
I
gray
know.
hairs to remember Max Headroom.
I mean, I didn't watch it live on TV, but I know what you're talking about.
Maybe it'll be more like Cortana. that for the younger kids that played some Halo.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
We'll have a little hologram there we can sit there and talk to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's so you're a ship it on chat is the new UX. I'm in agreement with you on that. I think that's going to be a really interesting area. And I think we're only scratching the surface right now. We're doing some cool stuff, but man, I think there's a long way to go here. This one's going to have a long tail. What about, and you seem to have a lot of experience here. So you've built some businesses around open source technologies. I'm specifically curious about, like, what do you think about the idea of building a business around an open source technology that's kind of managed by one of these big open source houses, like your Cloud Native Computing Foundation or Apache or one of those? Are you a ship it or skip it on that?
Well, I've never actually done it. So, Dagster is not managed by it's not an Apache project or anything like that. And React until very recently was not in a separate foundation. I think they do have a React foundation now. So I don't actually have any firsthand experience dealing with those organizations. I've heard secondhand experiences that there's a lot of bureaucracy and
Sure.
it seems like the decisions are a little slow, more slow moving. And I think, we're kind of an Airflow alternative, right? And Airflow is an Apache project. And we kind of hear from the people that work on Airflow that it can be difficult to build a commercial business on top of an Apache project when you have to run every decision through the committee. But I don't have any direct experience with Apache or CNCF or Linux Foundation, anybody like that.
Yeah, I would think it'd be hard, and I've been a member of Apache for many years. I'm not very active anymore, but I do know that it was frustrating for some of those folks who they are running a business, and I understand that you want to kind of get some decisions made, and you want to get them made quickly, but the committees they want to churn on things, and they want to think about it, and they don't have to, or they don't necessarily want to run at the speed of your business and cater to your business all the time. So yeah, I could see how that would be frustrating. If it was me, I would do it open source outside of an organization, at least definitely from the beginning. And if you're needing to make a lot of decisions and iterate very quickly, you're just not going to be able to do that in one of those foundations very well. So.
Yeah, I think it's probably really good for infrastructure that has a pretty well, it's been in production for many years. The interface doesn't change that much. And so it's really about stability and consistent incremental improvements across a diverse customer base, like, the Apache web server, right? Like it was made for that, right? So that makes sense to me. In the earlier stages of a project, I could see it being quite suffocating to not have a BDFL or like some sort of like really small group that can very quickly make authoritative decisions on things.
Yeah. And it's also can be funny. It can be like a dumping ground for, I don't know. Like I think some of the things from like Netflix or one of those, like a company, like they may build something internally that's really cool, and they'll use it, and then they'll get to a point where they're like, okay, this is cool. However, we've come up with the next version of it, and we're not going to use this anymore. But it'd be like kind of a shame for this to go to waste. Let's donate it to one of these organizations, which isn't bad. I mean, we get really cool stuff out of that, but that does seem to happen.
Yeah. This is also like part of this is like the same factors behind the microservice industrial complex of like 10 years ago, where it's like all the incentives align to like making the stack really complex because the individual engineer is like, oh man, if I like build this technology and like open source it, like I'm going to get that staff promo. That's like industry wide impact, So the individual does it. And then the company's like, if we have like a successful open source project, that's going to make recruiting a lot easier. We should go open source this. And then the people join the open source project. They're like, all right, we got to drive adoption of this thing. So like, let's exaggerate like how we use it, And then you get all these companies that like take it at face value and start using it. And then it becomes, I don't know. It's like, I think a lot of people did get burned by that phenomenon. At my startup, like years ago, we didn't quite get burned by it, but we came close. There was a lot of like streaming technologies that Actually, Storm, I think, kind of fell into that category, right? Like,
Yeah.
good luck if you bet your business on Storm back then, because it did not work out for you.
Didn't pan out. Okay. I'm a connoisseur and appreciator of very funny phrases. And I kind of want to let that wash over us a little bit here. I got to back up to the microservices industrial complex. Like, dude, that that was awesome. I got to let that wash over the audience. If anybody didn't appreciate that when he said it like I did, man, you're missing out. That was fantastic. I'd never heard that one before, and it caught me off guard, and I'm over here giggling like a schoolgirl. That's hilarious, man. I love it. All right. I got to spend more time with you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah. That was great. All right. So this is going to be fun. All right. So our next segment of the show is our lightning round.
It's time for the lightning round. Rapid fire, don't slow down. Answer quick and make it count. In this game, there's no way out. It's time for the lightning round.
And as if you're a listener of the show, a long-time listener, you know, the lightning round is, all of the stuff we've talked about thus far. It doesn't mean anything. It's nothing compared to the lightning round. Lightning round is what they're tuning in for. So there are wrong answers, there are right answers. I don't even know what they are, but there's a scoring algorithm, and we'll share with you what your score is once it comes back after a few weeks. We'll have all the data. We may start using Compass for this. I don't know. Maybe that's what we'll do.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Fantastic. Paper or plastic?
For what? Bags? Straws?
Yeah, like at the grocery store. Yeah.
Oh, at the grocery store, it's usually like the clothy paper, what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Okay.
straws, plastic, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I love turtles and everything, but man, I just could not. And I gave it the college try.
There's limits to the human being's empathy. And
Yes, and we
paper
found
straws
it.
is the limit.
That is the limit. We can draw that line very securely, very safely, and we know that's where it is. All right. Have you ever slapped someone in the face?
Certainly.
Certainly.
I was
love
a
that
high
answer.
school boy at one time.
Yeah. You gotta do that. Do you currently own any stuffed animals?
My 4-year-old daughter has a bunch of stuffed animals. Do those count?
I think that should count. I mean, okay. I mean, we won't attribute them to you. I mean, that's a reasonable reason to have stuffed animals, for sure. I still have a 17-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old daughter that have a lot of stuffed animals. So yes, I can empathize with you on that for sure. Have you ever been to Africa?
Not actually.
What's the lamest? I'm going to put them in air quotes. Dessert, and I'm putting that in air quotes, that people try to pass off as a dessert. What's the lamest one you can think of?
The lamest dessert. This is a lightning round, so I got to just say what popped into my head first, right? And carrot cake popped into my head first. I'm
That's
not
fair.
sure I really, in my heart, agree with that, but that is the first thing that popped in my head.
That's fair.
You know what it is?
Your phases?
If there's noticeable carrot texture in the cake, I'm out.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the art of making a carrot cake is masking that there are any carrots in it.
Right. It's like ketchup, right? Like it shouldn't taste like tomatoes. It should taste like sugar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're trying to figure out, how can I make this carrot cake not taste anything like carrots, but I'm still going to call it carrot cake? It just seems silly. Are you an LA or a New York kind of a person?
I'm on the East Coast, but I would much rather spend time in Los Angeles than New York.
Okay. Where are you at on the East Coast?
In Boston.
Boston. Love Boston.
Yeah. I like to visit New York for like a day or two.
I've never been to New York, like
really?
in the city. Yeah, I've been in the airport. That's it. But I've been to Boston. I love Boston, but I've never been to New York. I know I gotta get out more, I think. All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at trivia?
I'd say I'm a solid 7.
Solid 7. Okay. Are you the kind of person that, like, if your soup shows up at a restaurant and it's got a hair in it, are you I'm returning this kind of guy?
No, absolutely not. I'll eat the hair before I return it.
Right. Because it'll be worse.
Oh yeah. I mean, my mom's the opposite. Like she'd be like, I was like, she'd do that all the time when I was a kid. I was so embarrassed about it. I was like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
As a result.
The same way as you. I feel like, yeah. Okay, so we've just gotten through Thanksgiving. So this was a big topic around Thanksgiving. Tell us how you feel about cranberries.
Well, as a resident of Massachusetts, I'm supposed to be enthusiastic about them, but I gotta say, I always skip the cranberry sauce.
Is that a Massachusetts thing?
Yeah,
Cranberries?
they grow a lot of cranberries up here.
No kidding. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. The one thing that I knew someone, I think maybe one of our employees, like their family has like a humongous like cranberry farm. They do this. But I looked into this, how they make them, they float them up to the top of the water. But apparently there's a lot of spiders involved in the harvesting of cranberries, because when you float those things up there, that's where the spiders are there. Like it's just rampant with spiders.
I had no idea.
I didn't either, but it gives me the heebie-jeebies now. I mean, I'll still eat cranberries, but that's still, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder how many spiders per million cranberries make it into the actual final product.
What's the FDA limit? What are they saying? You know what? That's one too many
There
spiders.
is clearly a greater than zero limit to it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If they're involved that much, some spiders making it in somehow. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now that's ruined them completely for me. Would you rather wake up to an air horn blowing in your ear every day, or wake up and have to run 4 miles every day?
Oh, I think the 4 miles would be good for me. So I'll take the 4 miles.
I like that. That's a good way to look at it. All right, so this is an interesting one. We've asked this of other people, but you kind of have a firsthand knowledge here. Do you Instagram your food?
No, never.
No. Okay. I mean, you worked at Instagram, so I mean, you might have an interesting take. So you don't do it.
No.
So take it from the expert, folks. It's not what you're supposed to be doing with Instagram. He worked there. All right. This one's been kind of an interesting one for folks lately. I've liked asking people this one, and we'll conclude with this one. Do you like the smell of gasoline?
Yes. It's a great question.
I don't think anybody's said no yet. That has been the fascinating thing. Like, I thought it was just me. I thought I was the only weirdo in the world. This question, I have a question bank, and that was one of them. I was like, wow, that's kind of weird.
Huh.
Nobody said no yet.
I thought that I was weird too. That's really interesting.
It's a thing. So a lot of people like it. So, I mean, my completely scientific evidence says that everyone likes the smell of gasoline, but what the heck, right? All right. Well, that was fun. Again, we'll have to ship off the answers and have them analyzed and tallied up and everything. We'll get back with you on your score. So we're closing up here.
And update my credit score based on the results, all that stuff.
Yeah, you may want to lock it, because we do report on that. Okay. You might want to lock it now. In closing here, any kind of practical takeaways of any actionable insights or anything that we could take away from? Don't eat cranberries.
I guess that's one of them. It's a time of rapid change in the industry. And I think that it's not the first time it's happened. It's not the last time it's happened. And it seems like everything changes every week, and just keep your head on your shoulders and hang in there. And I feel like it'll stabilize soon. Maybe in 5 years. Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been a wild ride. It's been crazy since 2020.
Yeah. What about it? Yeah, that's true. What about anything coming up, like, or any big product releases, or any, like, are you speaking at a conference anywhere or anything like that? Books coming out, anything like that you'd like to promote or let us know about? Yeah. So we're releasing a couple of new Compass products really soon. We just went to GA with kind of the bring your own warehouse version of Compass a couple of weeks ago, and the Dagster Plus integration is coming out soon, and a couple of other new secret features. So check me out on LinkedIn or compass.dagster.io to learn more about Compass. And then, of course, Dagster and Dagster Plus is the best way to build data pipelines, in my opinion. So dagster.io for all of that stuff. Definitely have to look at Dagster for the durable execution. That's been something I want to play around with. So I'm definitely interested. Now I'm intrigued. So, well, this has been really great. We really appreciate you coming on, and we really enjoyed having you on the show. Thanks, James. Thanks for having me. Oh, no worries. Well, if you'd like to get in touch with us here at the /, drop us a line at the /@calibrity.com. See you next time. The / podcast is created by Calibrity. The / team is director and producer Ryan Wilson, editing by Steve Baradelli, marketing support by Taylor Blessing, and I'm your host, James Carman. Thanks for listening.